not sure who was, I'm not sure who was just speaking, but they were asking for everybody to like chime in on appreciations. Who did that? It- Whoever was just asking. Oh, Jennifer. I love that. Appreciations or taking a moment of what you're grateful of the day. It's really, so since you did that, I just came up with a grounding exercise based on that, because when you take a moment to appreciate something or something you're grateful for, it really encourages us to have this ongoing reflection in order to create this meaning of like daily events that otherwise go unnoticed, right? You know, I pet my cat, or I heard the birds singing. So it really takes a moment of pause, and this is about being mindful. And it takes a moment for you to say something so simple in your life that you would normally just bypass and go, how did that make me feel? And that's the core of being aware and present and mindfulness. So what I thought we could do then is do a little guided imagery, and it's called the joyful place imagery. And it really just utilizes your imagination to kind of evoke a sense of well-being and encourage insight. So it's purposeful engagement in a pleasant behavior. Okay. So if you're ready, everyone just begin to relax. I invite you to gently close your eyes or find a small gaze in front of you and just tune in to our moment tonight together in our supportive circle. And just take a notice of your breath as you breathe in through your nose and out through the nose. And now imagine a beautiful light centered in the focus of your breathing. You breathe in the light and you breathe out the light. Now look into the light and find a place of special meaning to you. Let your senses take in the surroundings of this special place of yours. What do you see? What do you smell? Tune into the sounds around you. And what are you feeling? Focus your awareness on this moment of being in your special place with yourself, feeling joy, safe, and at peace. Now find a word that you conjure up, or a repetitive word or a phrase to anchor your awareness in this moment. This is my happy place. This is what brings me joy. I'm at calm. I'm at peace. And in this moment, just simply settle into that word as you breathe it in. Feel the light, feel the sounds, feel the sensations. Feel the comfort and peacefulness of your happy, special place. Take one deep inhale through the nose and just sigh it out of the mouth. One more deep inhale through the nose. Take in the surroundings as you sigh it out. And then come back to our wonderful group. You sparked that one, Jennifer.
I'm so impressed that you can do this stuff off the fly so well. I'm just,
it's
awesome.
a lot of practice, but once you do it, it just becomes like so lovey and loving. I love it. Okay, so thank you for that, guys.
Thank you. So Elise is our presenter today, and she is picking up for what she signed up for, but last week we were not able to go over 2.6. So I'm going to very quickly just go over a little bit of 2.6. And if you've got your book, if you've got your outline, I'm going to use someone's tool and I'm going to give them props for it. Jennifer, you're going to help. You're going to have to help me remember her name. Christy. Christy just passed her board last time. So let me change the view because I'm recording. Sorry about that. I don't know why it's doing that. There we go. It's not on me. I don't know why. Anyway, show selfie maybe. All right. Anyway, I'm going to share this screen and tell you that this is not my screen, that this has helped me this week. And this is from Christy, who does have her own study group thing. So for 2.6, you're going to see some bolded things on here. And this is essentially directly from the National Board. And it is expand the conversation. And this is the overview for it. The overview is, and there's highlighted words. So if you have your book, or if you have a printout, or if you have this, if you want to just bold it on a PDF or whatever you're looking at, I really think this helps because it kind of gives answers to questions that you could possibly think of. But this is being able for the coach to expand the conversation within the coaching process. And what does that mean? It's the coach helps the client expand their possibilities by asking curious questions that evoke deeper thinking and self-reflection. So for an example, how does a coach help the clients expand their possibilities? The answer could be A, by being present, B, by blank, C, by asking open-ended questions, or D, by asking curious questions is the same thing. So you already know that a coach helps the client expand their possibilities by asking curious questions, and these help to evoke deeper thinking and self-reflection. So open-ended questions, starting with what or how. We always know that we should ask what or how questions. They encourage exploration as well as highlighting strengths, values, and opportunities for learning. The coach helps expand the client's perspective and explores interconnections in the client's life. So you already know that like an example question for the coach helps expand the client's perspective and explores interconnections in the client's life. These are questions that they may come back and ask, well, how did you do this before in the past? To get them to evoke, to get them deeper thinking. What were some of your experiences, right? That expands the conversation. Also within expanding the conversation, it also got me thinking of seeing somebody else do something, right? They didn't actually do it. And that word for some reason is on the top of my tongue and I have forgotten it. Hold on and I'll say it. Vicariously. So in a vicarious situation. So you see all these people bungee jumping and that gives you the courage to do it. So they say, well, I've got these friends that do it. So that may help to give that person some courage. So that helps to expand the conversation as well. So open-ended questions, starting with what, how, encourage exploration, as well as highlighting strengths, values, and opportunities for learning. The coach helps expand the client's perspective and explores interconnections in the client's life. What did you do in the past? How did that work for you? It could even be the opposite. That didn't work for me, or I didn't stick with it. The next part is just going over specifically all the dots, the subcategories of expanding the conversation. We do this by open-ended questions, by evocation, by evoking them. They can also use the word empowerment because it gives power, right? Or empowering the client. Use of metaphors based on the client's language and interests. So we should always use a language that the client can relate to. Oh, hold on. Why people are waiting. Sorry. Yikes, I can't find them. Okay, give me a second. Brainstorm, connect the focus to multiple dimensions of client's life, explore broader perspectives, and inspire interest in new possibilities. To also incorporate the coach's intuition. So we have to make sure that we do not forget that we feel a vibe from them. So we need to go ahead and act on that. We don't need to ignore that. So that's something that's very important that we need to make sure that we're not ignoring our own tuition. So we need to broader perspectives and inspire interest in new possibilities, connect the focus to multiple dimensions of a client's life. So that's just an overview. So I just really wanted to go over that with you just to give you something for 2.6. So if anybody has any questions, if not, I am happy to give this over to Elise.
And Sherry, just real quick, unfortunately, when I change it over to you, then you've got the people coming in.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else waiting?
I don't see where they're
everybody?
at because before it would show up on my screen and I'm not seeing them.
Okay. I've got a Sarah that I know. Let me see what we can do. If you hit participants,
I was in the participant this weekend.
well,
It's not showing me waiting. You hit that dot, dot, dot.
okay. I wonder what
Real
I can
quick.
do.
I'm going to see if it'll allow me. Oops. Just click on that. Okay, so I'm going to take off the waiting room. If it allow me. Nope, it won't.
Okay. She said if it's, yeah, it's tricky, then,
I normally
yeah,
see them
try
pop up. And I'm not
right,
seeing them.
okay. Yeah, it's just Sarah Kranz. I don't know, maybe she's, I don't know. Let me send her the link again.
Yeah, see if she'll try again.
And there's also a Kristen, I think, and also Michaela that's having trouble. No, we're setting one more time and I will try again.
Okay, somebody else.
As you guys are doing that, I just want to comment on the expand the
Sorry.
conversation.
Oh, yeah.
I just took my final yesterday. It was a 4-hour final for Mind Body Green. And it's like a mini national board. So it's 225 questions and it's like the real deal. And a lot of questions were focused around expanding the conversation. And it really gets into knowing the questions that they are the exact question for which stage they are in the TTM model. So a lot of the questions focused on, okay, if they were in, and they don't tell you it's pre-contemplation, but if they talk about what the client might be saying, and there are very, very specific questions that you have to ask at that point. So, and it's come up on a lot of the practice exams from the national board and from the Quizlets and the test we took. So for instance, like if they'll give a scenario and they'll show the scenario of what the client's saying. So if they're in pre-contemplation, the best question to ask would be, what would have to happen to signal it's time for a change? And that's shown up on several exams that I've taken. So there's a literally, what question should you be asking in that stage? And then there's the question, if it's in contemplation, the best question, and I've seen this in the books as well, is what would be the pros and cons of making this change now? So I would recommend, as you're going through the TTM models, explore the absolute questions you should ask in each of those stages, because they're going to show up on the exams.
Where do you find question clustered per TTM?
model? Where do you best find that in
I would
one course?
definitely say there's two things that actually popped up, and it actually popped up on the exam when I took it. So the motivational interviewing book, the Rolnick book, let me just grab it. Really, really study each stage and write down the questions that they recommend for each stage, because those are the questions that keep showing up on the exams. There's also the podcast that goes with this. So if you're not a reader and you're better at listening, they actually will go through each of the stage, and a lot of those questions showed up on the exam. So it was like, oh my God, I just heard that on the podcast. And I was like, oh, okay, exactly. That's the answer.
How did you
So-
find the podcast? Because I got the book,
Audible.
but I got the portable.
Or Audible.
Oh, Audible. Oh, the
Mhm.
Audible told you a podcast.
There's Audible has this book
Uh-huh.
that you can just listen to. I know instead of reading the book, you can listen to it.
Okay.
There's also podcast from these guys in Audible that goes through
Okay.
each of the stages. But a huge portion of the exam is based on the appreciative inquiry, using ORs, Cat, the rule. So it's a
Thank
big
you.
portion of the exam.
Okay.
if you
Because I
guys
have
know
the
what-
Audible, but I
Mhm.
haven't started it yet, but thank you.
Yeah. Highly recommend. Sorry. Go.
Casey, real quick, it
Yeah.
is not allowing me, like even when I go to security before, it would allow me to have somebody co-host with me. None of that's available today for some reason.
Okay. I'm just worried about the people that are waiting to,
I just put a message to people in the waiting room and I can click, it won't show me anybody in the waiting room.
okay.
So we'll
I
work
know,
on,
it says that they're in the waiting room. I don't see anybody. I don't have a waiting room either. I do have a button that says like reclaim host. Well, but would that make
Try
you
that.
not be able to record? Okay.
no,
I
you
just
can, you
don't.
should be able to do it because it's allowed me to
Okay.
record. So go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I got them all.
Okay, great.
I'm gonna
All right,
admit them all.
perfect. And I'm still recording, so we're good.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Okay, we're in good shape.
thank you so much.
Okay.
Good job, you guys, for perseverance.
Sorry to delay this whole thing to get the people
Yes,
in.
I know. I'm sorry. But
No,
we
we're all
did it.
good. Yes, okay.
Okay, good.
So, I'm sorry. Elise, if you want
We're
to go
ready
ahead and
to
take
dive
over.
in?
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. All right. So, yeah, tonight we're going over 2.7, 2.8, and 2.9. And my hope was that it would be a little more discussion based and yeah, that it wouldn't just be me speaking the whole time, and I'll definitely have questions interspersed throughout. But also feel free to pipe in as we go if you have relevant thoughts to share or questions as they come up. Yeah. So yes, we'll start with 2.7, focus and refocus the conversation. So yeah, we were just talking about expanding the conversation, and 2.7 is kind of the opposite of contracting the conversation. And so the overview, what was that?
My bad, sorry.
The overview here is the coach facilitates a conversation that balances a client's exploratory thinking with action-oriented focus, and techniques are utilized to narrow the conversation towards decision, goal setting, and commitment. all of which support action. So yeah, first point here is close-ended questions. So obviously as coaches, we use more open-ended questions than close-ended. We know that, but close-ended do have their place in coaching. So yeah, I'd love to hear when do we use these in coaching? What do you guys think?
Okay, I'm gonna speak up. Sorry. So once we've expanded the conversation and we kind of are like, okay, what is it that you want to do? Where are you at? And everything. So you talked to the client, you went over what it is that they did for last week, and now you're like, what is it that you want to work on for this week? And if they don't have something that you want to work on for this week, being able to see where they want to align to. So to me, it's before we were expanding the conversation, now we're focusing or refocusing the conversation. So to me, I kind of see it that way. And that's when we're trying to do some goals. That's when we're trying to get them to narrow things down because it's too big.
Yeah. Yeah, and so close-ended questions kind of help us narrow down, going from a broad view to kind of asking the client whether they're willing to commit to a topic, to a vision, to a goal. Some examples being like, are you ready to move forward? And even something like, when will you do this? Even though it's technically an open-ended question, it can have a succinct answer. Or something like, I hear you saying that you really want to exercise more. Is that what you'd like to talk about in today's session? So yeah, like you said, just kind of narrowing the focus and the commitment. Yeah, what else would people want to share about close-ended questions? Otherwise, we can move on. So interrupt and redirect is another tool that kind of narrows, and its purpose is to help the clients get back on track when they're out of focus or off topic. So yeah, but it's key to know kind of when it's a helpful tool to use and when it's actually better to let the client keep talking. And yeah, so situations where it would actually serve the client best to keep talking is either when they're like expressing really strong feelings and it's better just to hold space for that, or when the client is engaged in change talk and they're like exploring reasons to change.
I have a
We
bag.
wouldn't want
Yep,
to interrupt
yep,
them
yep.
then.
Okay.
And then, yeah, so when we do use interrupt and redirect, it's
Put it all in
when
there for me.
One
it's when the
second.
client,
Okay.
yeah.
Hey, Shirley, could you mute your mic for us, please?
Oh, that's
Just, we want a clean feedback on the video. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Also, Elise, the technique that it's called bottom lining, and that's actually showed up on many of the exams. So the technique a coach uses to interrupt and redirect is called
Thank you.
bottom lining.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, that's actually a separate point. So, but very connected. So that's where we're going. All right. So yes, interrupting, redirecting. Oops, I lost my place here. Yeah, so we use interrupt and redirect when a client's gone on too long or what, like wandered a significant distance from a topic at hand. And so really, I mean, and I feel like personally I have hesitation when I'm using this because I'm not a very like blunt person. So it feels almost, yeah, like against the coaching approach to do this. but it helped when I understood that like it's our job as coaches to hold our clients to their stated desires for coaching, and to hold that in front of them. And so it's really our job to, yeah, keep that at the forefront and to keep them accountable to that. And another situation you'd use this is when you have limited time left in a session and you just want to make sure that they have the opportunity to prioritize what they'd want to focus on with the remaining time. And so the way you go about interrupting and redirecting is to ask permission, something like, may I jump in here? May I pause you here? I had a thought, may I share? And then, yeah, following that interruption with a statement that helps redirect, like a summary or a question or a bottom line. So in a nutshell, what's the key learning here? Or I heard you say that you want to be more prepared. What does that look like for you? All right. Great. Any
Elise.
questions, comments so far before we move on from these two?
Elise, I was going to add something. I just learned this from Sherry's group, and you're talking about, and I tried it, was just saying their name,
Hmm.
and it worked.
Yeah, I like that idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah, so that helped redirect the conversation nicely. Yeah.
I like that. Thanks for jumping in.
So Elise, are you going to go to 2.8 next?
There's
Are you going to dive in deeper?
there's still more from 2.7 here.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so
Yeah.
much. All right.
So let's do it. So 2.7. Sorry, I'm situating my screen still. Okay. So yeah, more tools from 2.7 and narrowing the focus, bottom lining. Like Claire mentioned, it's providing a type of summary that's very concise, narrows things down, gets right to the point and succinctly. So again, this is useful for those long-winded clients or when time is really short. And it's actually something that can be used either by the coach or by the client. And so for the coach, it's helpful to be succinct anyways, because that makes reflections and questions more powerful. And the client does most of the talking anyways. But yeah, but when the client is using bottom lining, it's usually at our prompting. And it's the coach asking the client to tell you what is the essence and hand it back to you. So for an example, what's your take home or takeaway? What about that story is most important to you? Bottom line, what do you need to shift to move forward with this? Are some examples. And this actually teaches the client to be more focused and concise, which is helpful anyways. And it makes it more easily for them to identify what's important to them. So again, bottom lining, it's either you giving a concise reflection back to the client or asking the client to give a concise, focused answer to an open-ended question. Next up is scaling questions. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys. What are examples of scaling questions that you often utilize in your coaching?
Hi.
Okay, guys, participate. Thank you.
I always ask, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is this goal for you?
Yeah.
Like when in the beginning.
Definitely. Do you mean like the beginning, like when they're setting like bigger goals?
Yeah, we can be talking about long-term goals and then what their shorter term goals are, or maybe they come up with a few different goals.
Yeah.
So I narrow down, I help I help them narrow it down and then ask them a scaling question, because almost always it comes up with, oh, I've tried this before, I just don't have the motivation. to do it. So then it's perfect for a scaling question because
Yeah.
that helps them with motivation.
Definitely.
Chastity put a good one in stating in the notes in the chat, which I'm sure you can't read because you're trying to do the presenting and everything.
I just saw that. I'm
Okay,
looking at
yeah.
the chat now.
So confidence to change on a scale of 1 to 10. And then Michaela put in on a scale of 1 to 10, being not at all, 1 being not at all, 10 being ready to go. How confident do you feel about this goal this week? And then Sarah Krantz Owens states the same thing, really, by asking their confidence on a scale for a goal of that they just set.
Perfect.
And
yeah, those are all great.
I can say that I've also used the scaling of 1 to 10 on how achievable, well, that's actually not really with focusing in, but making sure that they're doing one that they want to by asking them how achievable that they think that they want it to be. And at the beginning of a session, I have listened to how they feel about something, like they're unsure, they're confused, or they're overwhelmed. And at the end of the session, just asking a scaling question to refocus them. How do you feel now? By going forward, what the steps that you said that you would take today. So how comfortable do you feel now based off of how comfortable you felt earlier today? And do you feel like you've got a clear path?
Yeah, that's a great way to just kind of highlight a shift that's happened.
I was gonna add to that too, like I usually use them before I meet with them. So on a scale from 1 being low to 10 being high, how would you rate your well-being? How well do you feel? And then on a scale from 1 low, 10 high, where would you like your well-being to be? How well would you like to feel?
Yeah, so you even use it like before a session begins.
And then we send out these forms beforehand where I work, and then when I meet with them, I ask them like, how relative is that to them today? So I'm meeting them always where they're at. And sometimes it's the same, and sometimes it's really not, because it could have been a week or 2 weeks, or depending on when they filled it out. So
yeah, so again, it kind of gauges a change, but it also helps you kind of gather their current state.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I like to share. I kind of get split between, I basically have ICF on my mind and executive coaching on my brain. So I kind of do a blend by asking folks, how are you showing up today, from, being present, from 1 being not so much and 10 being completely focused. So that's where I kind of use the scaling. And I'm always forgetting these terms. Like when you said scaling, I'm like, scale, what's that?
Yeah.
So yeah, range from 1 to 10. Yeah. So I like to gauge how folks are present, and from that, it kind of sparks conversation too.
Yeah. And again, it's like a kind of a current state, a way to gauge their current state. Awesome. Thanks for chiming in, everyone. And I have the chat pulled up now, so I can see that as well. But yeah, I think similarly for me, I use scaling questions like after coming up with like a long-term goal, or 3 to 6 month goal, just asking how important it is to them, and then in each session after setting an action step or a SMART goal, just asking the confidence ruler. I think that's how those 2 things show up for me most. But yeah, it's a great way to, again, kind of narrow things down, help the client really pick a concrete stance on something. And then, as always, it's great to follow up with curious, open-ended questions for exploration. And it can lead to a lot of change talk. So yeah, I have listed here just a lot of different rulers people use: readiness, importance, competence, commitment, motivation, all those things. All right, so moving on to asking the client to summarize the topic. Let's see. Yeah, so this does kind of relate somewhat to bottom lining and interrupt and redirect that we've already talked about, but it also made me think of just like generally eliciting from the client what they want coaching around, like just asking what is it they want coaching around today, or what feels important to focus on. But I think it could also be like, so in summary, what are you going to do? Like eliciting that commitment from the client to summarize all these ideas they had and what are they actually going to commit to? Or towards the end of the session, what are you taking away from today's session? That can bring a good summary of just their insights. But yeah, what this competency, asking the client to summarize the topic, what else did it make you guys think of? Or does it?
I think exactly what you just said, Elise, and that is, you know, can you summarize the steps that you're going to take this week? And that, or summarize what you're going to do. And sometimes it's good to get them to summarize even earlier to keep their focus at the beginning of the session, because sometimes it can kind of go away from itself. And we don't want to ask a closed-ended question, but get them to summarize the goals that they had done previously in the previous session, so that we can, when they finish, ask them what it is that they want to work on now. So then that way we can start focusing in on this. But sometimes, depending how chatty they are, we might need to do that.
Yeah.
Can I jump in and make a comment back on the scales?
Yeah.
The questions that continually come up from the national board exam is they always refer to the readiness scale and the motivation scale. And the questions always say, if a client, so I'm just going to focus on the motivation scale right now. How motivated are you? And the questions always answer, okay, the client says a 5. So what is your question next to the client? And it should be, why is it a 5 and not a 4? So when you're looking at motivation, you always drop down, because what you're trying to do is increase self-efficacy. So when those questions come up, always know when like asking motivation, they're going to say it's a 5, because it just keeps the same questions just keep coming up on the board. So a coach will say, well, why is it a 5 and not a 4? And the rationale is why you're increasing self-efficacy. On the flip side, if it's a readiness scale, what you want to do is shift the energy to make them, you know, have a positive thing. And this goes into the positive principle and positive psychology and in appreciation inquiry. So if they say it's a 5, what you want to ask as a coach now is that what would get you to a 6? So these are really tricky. So when it's motivation, you want to go down to increase self-efficacy. When it's readiness, you want to increase their energy and shift their energy to move forward. So that's when you go higher on the scale. So what would make it a 6? How can I get you to a 6? So you're, inspiring like inspiration, and you're making them start thinking, true, what would make me? So. Sorry, I'm just I'm like literally less than 24 hours off of this exam. So it's really.
No, I appreciate you bringing that up. It made me realize I jumped over that in my notes.
Oh,
So you've got my back.
Okay. All right.
No, that was great. And sorry, was there someone else who wanted to share?
It's Sherry, and I just want to stick in real quick that this is a recorded line, and Claire is not talking about the national board exam. She's talking about another exam that she just took. Claire, can you specify what exam that was, just for the recording, so we can keep
sure.
this
No,
online?
this is just my, certainly. This is my certification exam. I did not take the board exam. That's what we're preparing for. This was, but similarly, it was a 4-hour exam of 225 questions. And, when you take all the practice exams and things, different exams or Quizlet and stuff, these are some of the questions that I keep seeing repeated, but none of these were, official national board questions.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to chime right in. I literally wrote, thank you, Claire, because the motivation to go down in number and, or to go down in how you said it, but that from what I've read, and correct me, that is only if they give a number that is 5 or below. And if they
Yes.
give a number that's above 5, then we don't do it that way. Is that correct? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, yeah, so it depends if it's a readiness scale or a motivation scale. What you're trying to do in both cases is you're trying to increase self-efficacy. And if they're saying, so let's say they said on a readiness scale, they're saying a 7. Well, that's a good score. So you're okay there. So it's definitely yes, if it's the 5 score. So if it's 5 or below, this is when you flip the numbers.
Yes.
If I
Okay.
made that.
I'm gonna jump in just for a second here, because in can you hear me there?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So in my school and my training, we were taught that it should always be 8 or 9 or 10, kind of like completely confident. But for anything below 8, then we would, which is very interesting that we are talking about this right now, then we would do that same kind of like a confidence check. But also, Claire, which is kind of like wanted to confirm this, that the other option, then he was like, what could I do to get you to 6 would be nudging. And it was kind of like not really advice. So I'm kind of like confused right here.
Can I chime in?
Yeah.
I think the nudging up is motivational interviewing. I went to Duke and we talked about if you're a 7 to 10, you're pretty confident, then maybe go to the importance, readiness for change. You're always going to pick a lower number unless you're in a conversation type of situation that's motivational interviewing and you want them to nudge up. Otherwise, every other time you're going to ask a lower number.
Okay.
If you look into confidence building and the motivational interviewing, that's the only time you nudge the number up, in my understanding.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that, because just making sure.
And
Anyways,
from my experience with the lower numbers, this is coming, I mainly just use like the confidence ruler, like after setting a SMART goal. And if it's below a 7, I think the question we are taught to ask is, well, what would need to change, or how would you need to adjust your goal for your confidence to be at a 7 instead of a 5? Kind of highlighting that the issue is not the motivation, the issue is like the goal and how attainable it is. So it kind of highlights that the goal might need to be adjusted.
or
Elise,
it gives them
can I
also
chime in?
gives them an opportunity to practice self-efficacy, say that's their goal, and they say they're, oh, maybe a 6. Well, why are you a 6 and not a 4? And they'll be like, oh, I'm not a 4. And then they'll realize, oh, I'm not a 4. And they may start having some, little brain bubbles and confidence and and then you could maybe do a little bit of brainstorming because they're like, I'm not a 5. That's really bad. Or something like that too. So that kind of gives them an opportunity to say, oh, no, I'm capable of more. And it comes internally too.
Hi, Elise. I just wanted to chime in super quick while we're on this subject. I went through the Well Coaches program, and this was a part of our practical. And I was taught that if you are a 6 or below on the readiness to scale model, then you need to go back and you need to look at SMART goals and you need to explore the environment and the resources needed for that goal.
All right.
So just something to think about.
Cool. I'm glad I'm not the only one who heard something like that. But yeah, it definitely sounds like there's like some nuances to scaling questions and how we respond to them.
That's a good opportunity to brainstorm too.
Yeah, and I'm looking it up in the book, in my book, because it was specifically written, and I know that in a lot of the practice tests that were by Cherie and also what's the other person's name that does them? Melissa, that they had examples when, when to scale up or when to scale down. And in the MI book, it specifically stated to always ask them a higher number with a certain, and I was trying to find the page number of the book. Does anybody have that on hand?
Can you say the book when you say my book? Just repeat it.
The MI.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry,
okay.
I apologize. So we can take that offline, and if anybody finds it, we can throw it in a chat or something like that. I love that this has really opened this up, because this is something we definitely need to know for the exam.
You're not going to have a 5 or a 6 and then start setting goals. You really need to be like a 7 to 10. That way you're ready to maybe move on and set a goal. But if you have a client that's at a 5 or 6, maybe that particular goal, or maybe they need to, just shift something in it, because they're probably not ready to set goals if it's that low of a number.
It's on page 91 of the MI book, the motivational interviewing book. Shoot, I am so sorry. I'm looking at the freaking new book. Let me get the old book out. Maybe it's around the same page.
Okay, because this was on all the practice exams. You always go lower unless it's that confidence issue in a MI scenario.
And it was under confidence scaling.
This is probably a helpful thing to wait for the solid answer on. I would hope that the exam wouldn't choose a number that's like elicits different responses from different people. I'd hope it'd be pretty obvious, but still.
The exams that I've taken, you always go lower unless they address that they've already kind of done that in this scenario, and then they're wanting to go to confidence. Then the second agenda would be, how do I raise that number, nudge it up a little bit?
Yeah.
So a little bit of what we're talking about is on page 174 of the purple 3rd edition motivational interviewing, the MI book. 174, and that's talking about the importance ruler, and they talk about the value change talk when it comes to follow. So it's all on page 174 and 175.
Okay.
So hopefully that helps, because I remember that we had something we really weren't talk about. It says, whatever type of scale is used, it is possible to ask the follow-up questions of why the person chose their point on the scale instead of a lower point, which is always like the rule of thumb, unless it's a specific number. And they had it specifically in here. And I remember the reasons why were actually in when people said, well, why was it that answer? And they say, go to this page in the MI book, and it's based off of this. So I think that was around page 74, 75.
And also in the positive psychology, it's on 86 and 87.
Thank you.
All right.
I don't think I have positive psychology book.
And it talks kind of what
Page 12.
Yeah, the coaching psychology manual.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry. Page 86 and 87.
So if I were to throw out what I learned last week in a different study session, and this is for 2.7 to do the focusing and refocusing. Everyone, the 2 different slides that Elise has shown, you can remember it with a, oh my gosh, my mind is blank today. The word basic, BASIC. So B is for bottom lining. A is for ask the client to summarize the topic. S is for scaling. I is for interact and redirect. or interrupt, sorry, interrupt and redirect. And C is for closed-ended questions. So that might help you with that acronym if you guys are good with acronyms. So refocusing or focusing and refocusing the conversation. You definitely don't want to ask an open-ended conversation if the question is something like, do you ask them an open-ended conversation? But if the question's about focusing or refocusing, it would actually be a closed-ended question. The answer could possibly bottom lining, could be asking a scaling question, could ask them to summarize ask the client to summarize or to interrupt and redirect. So I don't know if that can help anybody with studying, and you may not have got there, Elise, but I just wanted to throw that in there since you had just gone over all 5 of those topics.
Nice. I appreciate that. All right, I think for the sake of time, we'll move on, but if people are still looking at those books, looking for some concrete advice on the scaling questions, feel free to jump in later on. Okay, 2.8. So 2.8 is going back here, assist client to evaluate and integrate health information. And it's honestly kind of like a vague competency point. It only has the overview here. So I'll read through that. So an objective of coaching is for the client to be well informed of the status of his or her health and well-being. And this process begins with identifying what the client understands. The coach then assists the client in finding and utilizing health and wellness resources, as well as accurately evaluating and integrating multiple sources of health information. So these sources may include healthcare provider input, health and wellness assessments, including self-assessments, health risk assessments, basic biometrics, and appropriate referrals. Yeah, so what comes to mind for you here? What coaching skills or situations does this apply to?
I naturally gravitate to the biometrics, the basic biometrics, because you know, I think no matter where people are, everyone gets kind of scared when they get information from their practitioner about a particular condition that they're either going towards or have received a diagnosis. And so I guess I do what I'm comfortable with. So and just trying to use the coaching skills versus the nursing skills. I think that is where I see folks could really use partnering. Again, I'm mixing a little bit of ICF kind of coaching of partnering with the person and helping them to walk through how they want to move forward and managing what they just learned.
Yeah. Yeah, so not just making sure they have the information, but partnering with them and what to do with it. So something that came to mind for me was EPE or elicit, provide elicit. And I think it was mentioned last week as well, but this is just a coaching tool that is a great way to inform the client in an autonomy supportive way. And it also helps you kind of tailor information to the client's needs and allows you to find out what the client already knows and perhaps correct misinformation while avoiding like information dumping. So like an example situation for this would be a client has diabetes and mentions their A1C level, but something they said makes you wonder if they know or understand what A1C is or its importance. So yeah, you would first ask, what's your understanding of an A1C test? That's that first elicit. And if it seems that they don't have much information, you would ask, may I provide you with some information? Or if they say something a little confusing could say, I actually understand A1C a bit differently. May I explain? So kind of, yeah, providing information with permission. Explaining an A1C test averages your blood glucose levels after 3 months, all that. And then closing the loop with, what questions do you have about that? Or what do you think about that? Or even something like, I'm not sure my thoughts came across clearly. What did you hear me say? So again, eliciting their response to that, their understanding of that. Yeah. So that's kind of the one tool that came to mind for me. And then also just the idea of assessments was in that overview as well. So yeah, what do you guys think, or what have you experienced the purpose of assessments to be in a coaching relationship?
Elise, I liked your technique of, I like the style of saying, I'm not sure my thoughts came across clearly. What do you think of that? Because just that phrase alone breaks down the hierarchy barrier and makes the person just relax and kind of now giving you information about how they perceive it, understand it, and it really creates that matching and partnering in the dynamics right then and there.
Yeah. I got that from my program, so I don't take credit.
The only other thing that I have is a great resource on that is page 113 to 122 in the CPM book. And that goes over the assessments. And I think it's kind of a cool thing at 122 because we don't want to be considered the expert because of the assessments. And so like asking inquiries when we're finished, like what questions do you have after completing the assessments? What insights do you have, after you completed it? I'm curious about the way you responded. Tell me more. What do you feel the most proud of? What surprised you when you filled this out? And just opening it up to them, because it's not about how we interpret it, but possibly what they got out of filling that assessment out that they learned for themselves.
Yeah, I was gonna sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add to the HRA's specific purpose is to, to measure health and lifestyle status as well as change readiness. Also identifies red flags with respect to mental health and medical case gaps. It creates deeper conversations rather than a mandate for prescribed change. And sometimes it can leave less room for collaboration and more room for the expert hat. So it can sometimes not be beneficial because it can push the conversation into the fix it.
Yeah, so there's definitely some danger zones with assessments. Which is why, yeah, what Sherry was mentioning was so important, to take the assessments and then follow it up with the appreciative inquiry, curious questions, and even highlighting things that are like reflected as strengths and like successes. I think we all naturally gear towards, oh, this highlights something that's wrong with me, or that, yeah, like you said, needs to be fixed. We get into like that evaluation mode. So those are definitely pitfalls. But yeah, I think overall assessments, they do just kind of help stimulate reflection and self-awareness in the client, and does aid them in kind of narrowing their priorities down. And it also helps kind of reveal discrepancies if clients think of themselves as, I'm a really active person, like I love movement and exercising, but after like truly evaluating their like daily life, they're like, oh, I'm not meeting the guidelines for exercise. That does not align with how I view myself. Like, I want to move more. Yeah. All right. Now we have a practice question. So we'll read through this. I'll let you guys read it on your own. It's a lot of words and I don't want to. And then I'm gonna have you put your answers in the chat. I haven't decided. Yeah, I'll do a little countdown. You read, I'll stop talking. I'll come back, but don't put your answers in the chat just yet. Okay, when you're ready, you can put your answer in the chat. Wait for a few more to come in. All right, we've got some B's and some E's, some conflict. Who would like to say why they chose B?
I don't mind sharing.
Yeah.
I think as a coach, you are not supposed to address the ways to move the client or help evaluate, determine, or assist. It's client-based. So sharing, you're going to try to motivate them to find out more and rather than direct them or consult them. Because you're not going to just go and pick out the BMI for the client, because you want them to pick out the focus. Helping them evaluate and integrate the health information that is there. That's probably likely, but it would be client driven. You wouldn't pick it out and say, let's work on your BMI or that type of thing. And you're discussing the assessment. The role of the coach isn't to start creating actionable steps. I think you're trying to find out what the client knows about what they need to know and where they want to go. That's my thought.
Yeah. Does someone want to chime in for E?
Yeah. Help them learn and evaluate, I guess. Resources. I can turn on.
I really like how Jennifer explained that, and the fact that because I said B, but I did like how E was worded, because I felt that in B it lacked the part that when I read it, I kind of felt like we were going to be providing them the information, but it's not. We are to help the client evaluate and integrate the health information that they provided to us, as opposed to us educating them on it. We can ask them what they know about it, and that way they can tell us what's important to them and what they know about all the different topics. So, and we don't assist the client. We do assist the client to create actionable step items, but that's only after we have confirmed that they understand it. So I think that B is more to help the client evaluate to understand it, because you can't create it until you focused in on what's important to them. But that's me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you could be evaluating, they might be a 20-year smoker and you're going, oh my gosh, they need to stop smoking, but they are focused on losing 10 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So it's whatever's important to them.
Yeah. So the correct answer is B. And I think the key here is that it's asking the primary role of the coach. I think E is something a coach would do, but it might not be the primary role when discussing biometrics and things like that. And also because, let's see here, going back to this slide, it kind of maps out that, where does it say that? The coach then assists the client in finding, oh wait. Oh, I thought I said something. Oh, I thought some of those words were in there. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they are, and I missed it. Evaluate and integrate. I feel like I gotta look at this again.
I thought we're not supposed to evaluate.
I think evaluate
Helping the
ties to
client
identifying
evaluate.
what they understand.
Partnering with them, asking them what they are identifying and what they understand. So it's more of a partnership than telling them, assisting.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I like that.
As well as accurately evaluating and integrating multiple sources of health information. Okay. Other questions, thoughts on this practice question?
Good question.
Okay.
Very good question.
Moving on, 2.9. So 2.9 has so much stuff, and we're not gonna do it all in 10 minutes, sadly. But that's okay. We will get into the trained theoretical model because I felt like that was a really important part of this. So without further ado, oh wait, I didn't read over all that. But 2.9 is all about goals and implementing action. So, all right, trained theoretical model. So of course, all the stages of change, you start with pre-contemplation. So just kind of the key points of pre-contemplation, client is thinking or saying, I can't, I won't. They're feeling defensive, demoralized, or like they don't know how they would make such a change. Their cons of making a change outweigh their pros. And then the important task of the coach is to get the client to think about the behavior, not to get them to do any action. Forcing them into action at this point in any way would be detrimental. And it's just to increase their awareness of risks of their current behavior, if there are any. So yeah, like the key question to ask, or a key question to ask, would be, how would you know when it's time to quit smoking? What would show you that it's time to make a change? How would you know you're ready? And even one way to encourage a client to start thinking about change is just to ask them if they'd be willing to list all the pros they can think of, just to get them to start thinking about it. So yeah, to progress from pre-contemplation, a client's pros need to increase. And this is a really key area as a coach, if someone is in this stage, to meet them with empathy, with non-judgment, accepting them as they are without any change on the horizon. Moving on to contemplation. Someone is thinking, yes, but I'm not sure, or but this is in the way. They're feeling some doubt. Want to jump in, Jen?
Yeah, I just remember on a couple of practice exams that I did, the biggest change from what stage to what stage, and that's pre-contemplation to contemplation. Just kind of stick that in there somewhere, because I've seen that question come up a lot.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, that's in the Changing to Thrive book. Yes. So yeah, they're feeling some doubt about whether the change is worth it, whether they think they can make the change, whether they want to. They want to delay change, and they're feeling some dread of potentially failing. And contemplation is really where that decisional balance is at play. And the coach's role is to kind of ask questions that help tip that decisional balance towards change, while still honoring the ambivalence, eliciting change talk, listening for the desires, abilities, reasons, needs, maybe commitments. But yeah, a very useful stage for motivational interviewing. And where pre-contemplation, we wanted the pros to increase. Here, we just want the cons to decrease. So asking, what are some positive aspects of making this change right now? Claire, you mentioned a different question to ask during contemplation. What was that again? If you're still on here. Maybe not. Okay, that's okay. All right. So, I forgot to note, I think, isn't it contemplation is they're planning to make a change in the next 6 months? I think. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Preparation is planning to make a change within the next 30 days. So preparation is a client saying, I will, I plan to. And the task here as coaches is to help the client develop their plan, to help them make a commitment and kind of pre-think through obstacles, troubleshoot, identify support, strategize what coping mechanisms they'll use when they do face obstacles. So just getting them completely ready for change. And I feel like this is often like an overlooked stage or task where preparation really is important and helpful to spend time on before jumping straight into action. And so some questions to ask are, how would you go about that? What would be your first step? What obstacles do you foresee? How would you respond if XYZ happened? Things like that. Action is, I'm taking action, I am doing the thing currently. So key here is connecting values and strengths with this new behavior that they're implementing, and just helping them continue to execute the plan that they came up with. Kind of optimizing environment and support, identifying rewards that they're experiencing, whether that's, increased energy, whatever it is. And then continuing to plan ahead to prevent lapses and relapses. Things like, you have that vacation next week. What is exercise going to look like then? Or that kind of thing. And then maintenance. So maintenance is, I'm continuing. I've been doing this behavior for more than 6 months now successfully. And here it's important, just as the coach, to help reinforce those internal rewards, intrinsic motivation, keep them focused on that vision and how they're continually moving towards it, and just to celebrate the success they're having. So I flew through those. Thoughts or questions on the stages of change?
I do have a note that contemplation, it says a change in behavior is likely to happen within 3 to 6 months. And the research has been a little controversy, but I think there's something specific for the test. And I think it was, I don't remember if it was 3 or 6. Does anybody remember for contemplation on how long it's going to take to make a change?
thought it was 3, but
Okay.
maybe it was 3 to 6. They're saying 3 to 6.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look at the Changing to Thrive book or some other book.
I read within the next 6 months, but the 3 part might be the range. When I look at ranges like that, I look at the part where it drops off. So then I focus in on the 6 because I know they have up to like 6 months to be in that stage, as opposed to focusing on the beginning of 3 months, if that makes any sense. So one of the notes, materials I had that says considering taking action within the next 6 months. So I guess it incorporates 3.
That's correct. It's actually in TTM, the model is the ambivalent stage could be, it's considering taking action within the next 6 months. So when they're going to be asking you questions like what stage are they in, if it's like, yeah, next week I'm going to start. So that means that's preparation because that's in the next 30 days. So it's 6 months for contemplation, the next 30 days within preparation. And in action, you're already making the changes and you begin the changes within less than 6 months. And then you've been doing it for 6 months.
Well, and maintenance, the pre-contemplation first is they're not going to do anything for more than 6 months, but they end with maintenance. They've been not only successful more than 6 months, but termination is 5 years, because I've seen questions for that. So if they say they've been doing it for 1.5 years, they're still in maintenance. They're not in termination until year 5.
Yeah, that's important.
I made a little chart. No, I just have to put it under my pillow.
Can you guys repeat that one? Because I'm actually like writing that down and I was looking at something else.
Pre-contemplation, you're not ready, greater than 6 months. I don't know how, I can't or won't.
Also important is that it's called the 3 Ds. So in pre-contemplation is it's demoralization and defensive.
And defending, yes.
Demoralized, they don't know how, or they're defensive. Correct. 3 Ds on that one. And then contemplation, they're getting ready. It's going to be within 6 months, and the language would be I may. So you're going to want to explore ambivalence, and the 2 Ds are doubt and delay. You agree, Claire?
Yes, that's correct. It's 3 Ds.
I'm getting in trouble, Claire. Preparation is they're ready. So you're looking at a 30-day time frame. So if they say they're ready and they're thinking in a month or 2, that's not preparation. It has to be 30 days, and they're going to say I will. And you're going to do some problem solving about barriers, maybe resources, but preparation, their D is for dread. Right. What if I do it and I fail? There might be a fear of failure with preparation. Action, you're making the change. You're successfully changing, though it's less than 6 months. You're saying, I am whatever you're doing. You're increasing your self-determination theory, resilience, self-efficacy. And the D word for action is it's too demanding. It's too hard. D.
I think you said quickly, I think you said less than 6 months, but action is that it may last 6 months or longer. That's because I think what was asked earlier was
action. Yeah, you're taking action, but it's been less than 6 months. Once you hit that 6 months marker, you're switching over into the maintenance phase. You're confident with the change, and greater than 6 months to 5 years is maintenance. And the words are I still am. So action is I am. Maintenance is I still am. And the D word for maintenance is distress. If you lose your job, you have a death in the family, some big life happening, distress things, a fear of relapse. That's what distress is on that one. So when you hit that 5-year mark and on, then you're talking about termination because it's a habit of your life that you don't even think about.
So if we can pause,
please,
because if we can pause, because I think the question was, and which information was great, but I just want to make sure that we're answering what was asked was about that those time bands. And so we did answer them. So when we talked about maintenance, and we are saying 6 months to 5 years, that when it reaches 5 years and it passes 5 years, then it kicks into another stage and is no longer staying in maintenance because the person has passed 5 years. I've been doing this for 6 years now. And if they said that statement, they are in termination, because the semantics makes a person think opposite. When your person say, I've been doing this for 6 years now, you're thinking that's great. But in terms of the TTM, the definition is called termination, because they're not in this, it's not in this TTM flow.
Yeah, they've made it through life's up and downs, and they've maintained it without relapsing.
Yeah.
You're right. Termination does sound like, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore.
Correct.
All right. We are at time, but let's end with a practice question.
Okay. This has been lively.
Got people talking.
It helps you remember when you talk it out.
Is there any way to just flash the pre-contemplation again?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Heading back here.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I can't, I won't.
Feel free to put your answers in the chat when you're ready. All right.
Let's go for ice cream.
Got a lot of C's here. And the correct answer is C. So what indicated to you guys that it was C?
I realized that now is the time to make a focus effort. I will improve my stress management skills. It is time. They do say I just need to talk it out, but I feel that they are saying I am ready. They are preparing themselves.
Yeah. When they say now is the time.
Yep. And when they say I want to talk it out, they're problem solving, looking at barriers, resources. They're wanting to nail it down.
They're ready, but they haven't done it yet.
Right.
All right.
Saying like,
great job.
So after this vacation, maybe after the holidays, then maybe I'll get. They're like now.
And that's a good point that you just made, because people can still say the word I will, but with that tonation, well, after the holidays, after I come back, I will do it. And they're still saying the words I will. So it's not just the fact that they said I will, it's the way in which they were speaking with confidence and readiness and all the other words.
There was another exam that I got the answer wrong, and it was somebody said, this pack of cigarettes, I have 3 left in here, and that's it. I'm quitting after this. What stage would you say that was? I got it wrong.
Pre-contemplation?
I would say that's pre-contemplation.
I would say contemplation.
I would say pre-contemplation.
No, I have this pack of cigarettes, and I have 3 left in here. When these 3 are gone, I'm quitting smoking. It's action.
Action?
Yep, because they said I'm gonna do it. I am going to stop smoking. There's 3 cigarettes left in here. When these are gone, I'm done. I am stopping smoking. And that's action.
I guess
got
they
it
have
wrong.
their
I put
plan.
contemplation. I put contemplation, but the answer was action.
I felt
guess
that
they
was
don't-
preparation. They're preparing
don't-
themselves for those
No, yeah,
last 3.
I think I did answer preparation, but it's action because they said there's 3 left. I will quit smoking. And
Yeah,
that
but when it comes to smoking,
I am-
recidivism is serious. And when the person says after these 3 cigarettes, they still have the desire for smoking. It's like after these 3 cakes, I'm gonna.
I mean, that was a
go on
test
diet.
question, and I put preparation, and it was wrong. The answer was action because they're saying
Interesting.
I will quit smoking after this. Now, if they're going to be successful, it might be a different story.
Got it.
And I thought, well, who can really do that? Go cold turkey. But then again, we're also studying for an exam, not real life. So if they say I am,
Interesting.
it's action.
I see in the chat here, Audrey asked if someone could post those kind of time windows. Maybe if someone would be willing
I
to
would have to
post
go
that,
look
like,
at my, I don't know if I have my
in-
practice test.
maybe
Yeah,
we
type that
can
fast.
post about it in our Facebook group or our little chat. Maybe
Yeah,
that would be
put it in the chat.
helpful.
I have a little table where it says the stages of the change, the keywords, and then what our coaching tools are with all the timelines and stuff. It's I'll just put it in, but not tonight. I'll have to do it tomorrow.
I think I actually
That
said
would
I
be helpful,
will. They
Claire.
said I am is what they said. I am done.
If you say I am, you're in action, flat
Yeah,
out.
he said I am
Yeah.
done smoking. I have to go look. I don't know if I have a copy of
Ah,
the practice test, but I knew I got it wrong.
And where will you put that? Will you put that on the page, or where will you put that information?
I'll put it in the
Nowhere in my practice test.
I'll put it in
In
the chat, and I'll post it to our regular exam cohort,
Okay,
but it won't be till tomorrow.
okay. I
That's
have one more question. Where am I? Because I keep reading about 3 months. So is that what Dr. Getty said, that you were saying that was just the beginning of the change, the 3 months to the 6
the
months?
band. Someone said
Band.
3 to 6 months. I said I pay attention to the 6-month
That
mark.
was me. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
With
Yep.
6 months, because that's where it is in all the books.
Within, yeah, what books say within 6 months.
Yeah. Okay. It's a start at 3. Okay.
All right. Well, we didn't get to a lot of 2.9, but I think we covered a lot. It was a good discussion. So,
Minute question now.
all right. Thank you guys for being interactive.